So in this video we'll be taking on the servicing of a PA with the dual motors. Now this one, when I put it on the test stand, ran with some coaxing. It seems like the drum and contacts were kind of dirty, but after I cycled the reverse unit a number of times, it finally started to make contact and run. Didn't run very well, but not horrible either. So one of the first things I like to look at once I have it out of the shell is to check the play on the axles, on the drive wheels. And if you look there, you can see that there is some play in it. This one, I probably wouldn't change the bushings on yet, but it's not far off. And they're both about the same, as you would expect. Now, one nice thing about this later version is it has a double yoke on the motor, and it makes it so that you can kind of pop the motor out without having to take the clip and the wiring off. Now the grease on this is a little bit caked. But again, not as bad as I've seen on some. Some of them it's really hard. So I'm going to continue to take the two motors apart and see what we have there. So you should inspect the gears, looking for wear on worn ones. This will start to get thin on the worm here. Instead of having that flat area, it'll almost come to a point. That means it's getting worn out. Same thing with the gear on the truck. This, if you look really close, you can see a little bit of taper in those. Not perfect, but not unexpected for the hours that this one has on it. Kind of goes along with the amount of play there is in the axles. So now we'll take a close look at the reverse unit. This one's been sprayed with a lot of lubricant or tuner cleaner, and it's kind of shiny and wet inside. I really don't recommend that because that just gives something for dust to stick to. Looks fairly good. All the teeth look like they're in good shape. Give the fingers a little bit of a polish here, and that'll make it easier to tell if there's any holes at the contact point. So this set has one really small hole right at the point of contact. The other side looks a little worn but no hole. And then these two look pretty good. It's just a matter of how much pressure they're putting on the drum. The more you push them in to push on the drum, the faster they might wear. But by the same token, you need that pressure or you're not going to have a good working reverse unit. I'm taking a little closer look at the armature. See if there's any play in the bearing. Of course, they should move end to end freely and spin freely, but you shouldn't be able to put much of a twist motion in them, and these seem fine. And the other thing to check for is wear on the commutator. So to do this, I stick the end up with the commutator on it in a little handheld drill, like that. And then I take a small strip of sandpaper, wrap it around the commutator and run it a little bit. And then if there's wear, you'll be able to see dark lines and light lines. And this looks pretty good just with that little bit of polishing. I also like to polish the magnetic area. And then once you have it to this point, take something with a thin edge like a old X-Acto knife. This one's got no sharpness to it anymore. It's worn out that way, but it's good enough to slide in between each of the gaps in the commutator plates to clean out any carbon buildup from the brushes and any little pieces of copper that you might have just sanded off it with the sandpaper. If you have a ohm meter handy, you can also check to make sure that you have the right resistance. And the key is that they are within a tenth of each other. And these all read 1.9, so that's really good. I'm going to do the same thing for the second one. So the next step will be to take these two chassis clean them up, get the excess grease off them, and then soak them in some degreaser. I usually try to do that overnight. It makes it that much easier to clean up. A couple other things to inspect is the wiring. Some places where you have possibilities for failure is where the wires connect to the field. Sometimes you look at it and it's making a connection still, but only maybe 1 or 2 strands of the wires are connecting. So you want to make sure you got all good connections. Same thing with the connection to the brushes. Those look really good for that motor. This green wire has got a few broken ends hanging out here. The other one looks okay. And these look okay, but one thing that I'm a little suspicious of is if you look at this field, that nice shiny copper looking wire, and you look at this field and you see all that black through the middle there, there's a good chance that this has burned off some of the insulation from getting overheated at some point, and now it may not be functioning correctly. So I'm going to put the voltmeter or ohm meter to it also and compare it to the other one. .9 ohms, which is around where it should be. Tricky to get good contact here. Again, 1.6 on that one. Check this one again. It's good, 1.6, 1.7. So they are the same. In this instance, I would probably be tempted to coat this a little bit, just to be on the safe side. One thing that works really good, nail polish. It'll run in between the wires. Help form a barrier. So I'm just going to gather up all the loose parts and set them aside until tomorrow after the chassis have had a chance to soak and get cleaned up, and we'll continue from there.